Let's talk trucks. Today I want to talk to you about the Toyota T100. Have you ever wondered about this oddball truck? Maybe you've got one you want to upgrade yourself. Today I'm going to get into where this truck came from and things you can do to make yours a little bit better. This truck was originally a research project from Toyota. They wanted to see how a full-size truck would do in the American market. Turns out not too good without a V8. The only thing that got this truck as far as it did is the fact that it was such a workhorse. Now let's talk about things that the Toyota T100 has in common with other Toyota trucks. Let's start up front. The first thing that is in common with the other trucks is the Ifs suspension from 86 until 95. So you're going to be able to use the control arms from pickups and 4Runners from that time period. You're also going to have the same 7.5-inch front differential. So you can use gears and carriers from that same 7.5-inch carrier and clamshell. The big difference up front is going to be the axle lengths. So you do have your own unique axles up front, but the ball joints, control arms, and I think even the spindles, at least for two-wheel drive, are going to be the same up front. Heading out back, we have an 8.4 Toyota differential in the rear. That's going to line up with non-e-locker Tacomas. It's going to be in some of the first-gen Tundras. And you're going to have some locker options back there as well, but we'll get into that in the future. Now up front, back again under the hood, there's going to be some stuff that you can share with other Toyota trucks there. I have a 3.4 automatic, so there's going to be the engine, the transmission, and the transfer case are all going to be shareable with other trucks. Keep in mind that some of the installed items might be different, like the oil pan, for instance, is unique to the T100. But for the most part, you're going to be able to use most of those items. Something to keep in mind if you ever need to find a spare. If you wanted to change your front hubs to manual hubs instead of the ADD vacuum actuated hubs, you have the option to get hubs from a 86 to 95 pickup, and they will bolt right in. There is write-ups online on how to do that. You do have to do a little bit of work to the inside of your clamshell, but that's something you can do to save some gas mileage and keep your CV axles from turning all the time if you have a four-wheel drive truck. Another thing to keep in mind is that you can use a lot of the standard upgrade accessories from like low-range off-road and trail gear. So your U-bolt flip kits, you're going to be able to use any kind of like axle things like shock tabs and shock brackets. The upper mounting brackets I've found have not been long enough, so you're probably going to have to do something custom there. But things like 8.4 axle truss, there's things for the T100 actually specifically there. So there are some options to upgrade that out back as well that would be shared with other trucks. There's not a whole lot. Obviously you're going to have some carrier locker options with the 7.5, but there are speculation about if you should lock a 7.5 clamshell, so I'll let you do your own research on that. But I think that pretty much wraps up things that you're going to be able to share with other trucks. Alright guys, let's get into the fun stuff. Let's talk about upgrades. When it comes to the rear, that's the leaf spring setup, so that's going to be pretty easy for you to upgrade. You could do a few things here. You have a helper spring that you could do. You could get a leaf spring helper, which is basically an add-a-leaf. That's going to make the rear stiffer and also add a little bit of height, a little bit of lift. So if you're carrying a load, that might be a good option for you. Another option you have would be shackles. There is no direct fit shackle. You could make your own. I believe first-gen Tacoma shackles, as well as the regular pickup, so like the 85 to 90s pickup, those shackles will work with spacers. So that's something you could figure out. And of course you have the bottom of the list would be a lift block. There are lift blocks available. Personally, I would recommend that you don't do that, but it is an option you have at your disposal. So let's go up front. One thing to talk about up front is they really don't have many options here. So without going to a long travel, you could do a bracket lift, which is from Superlift. I believe it's a 4 to 6 inch kit, and that will come with lift blocks. I think that's pretty much your least desirable option, but it is an option you have. And another option you have would be to do a ball joint spacer, and that's what I've done myself. Be careful of advertised heights. They are usually 1.5 inches. I believe there are some extreme versions out there that are larger, There may be some smaller ones, but most of the time, even if it says 2 or 2.5, it's actually a 1.5-inch spacer. So otherwise, without going to long travel, there's not a lot you can do up front. One thing you can do to get bigger tires and a little bit of height without losing your center of gravity is a body lift. You have a 2 or 3-inch body lift option that is direct fit for the T100. That's something I chose to do. It does have its drawbacks, but it also has its pros as well, and I felt like the pros outweighed the cons. So that's something I've done. Along with the ball joints, I was able to get 35s, and I do wheel it. So I did have clearance issues a little bit, but I really don't now. I've done some things to tweak it, but we'll get into that stuff later. So into the long travel, you do have a few options. Total Chaos makes a kit. Blazeland used to make a kit, but they are out of business. But again, those are parts that are shared with a pickup, so a lot of times you can find those parts used, or you can still buy them new for those particular pickups. One thing to note is that since the T100 is longer, the pickups use T100 axles for the long travel to retain four-wheel drive. So a T100 would have to have custom axles made to retain four-wheel drive with long travel. That's pretty much going to wrap up the basic upgrades that you can do. There are obviously plenty of engine upgrades that you can get. LCE being pretty much the best brand that I'm aware of you can get upgrades from. I'm sure there are others out there, but that's going to be the tried and true. Let's talk about Superchargers. Alright, so the 3.4 was offered naturally aspirated from the factory, but TRD offered a supercharger that you could get from Toyota. I think it may have been installed as a dealer option, but it was never installed at the factory. So starting in 97, I believe, 97 and 8, you could put a TRD supercharger on without ECM remapping. So there are, I believe, a couple generations of the TRD, and there's also an offering from Magnuson for the 3.4 supercharger. If you go that route, you can do so without remapping or any kind of added fuels if you have the 97 or 98. Before that, you do need a piggyback ECM, and you can get the tuning software and all that kind of stuff from Underdog Racing Development. They also offer a 7th injector kit, and they also have different size pulleys that you can use for the supercharger to try to get the most out of that thing. So something to keep in mind if you got deeper pockets and wants a little more performance out of your truck. There are a few brake upgrades. I've read about Tundra brakes fitting, being I think a 1-inch larger rotor, something like that. I haven't done it myself, but I would recommend doing your own research if you wanted to do that upgrade. And then of course there are some bolt-on direct fit upgrades available from brands like EBC. So those are the options you have at your disposal there for those sorts of things. Of course out back, a leaf spring swap kit would work the same as it would on any other pickup. So if you wanted to put like Chevy 63s, that's another option that you have. And of course, custom companies like Diva are always willing to accept a job for something like T100, so that's another option that you might have. So there are definitely some upgrade options out there, but they're sometimes a little bit harder to find. As far as lockers go, there are locker options. Again, all the standard stuff for the 7.5, the same stuff that you would get for a Toyota pickup. There are lunchbox lockers, the Spartan, the Grizzly, AirB makes an air locker. That's going to be true for the 8.4 as well. You're going to have all those same options for the 8.4, as well as a Harrop brand e-locker is another option you have for the 8.4 to have a selectable locker. So something for you to think about, and of course they make spools for it as well if that's what if you're getting pretty gnarly with your truck, but a spool's not going to do well on the road, so keep that in mind if you do go with that choice. So I think that's going to pretty much cover the main upgrades. I'm sure I'll think of one or two and might put them in, but that's pretty much it. Now, as far as armor on your T100, there are not many options. There are no skid plate options. You have a do-it-yourself front bumper and a do-it-yourself rear bumper option. Both are from Northwest Trail Innovations. I'm hoping to have one, hopefully at least for the front, because I do have a winch myself ready to go on, but I don't have the bumper. I am happy with their product, I can say that. I built one for my girlfriend's 4Runner, and I'm happy with the way it turned out. But that's pretty much going to wrap up the basics of what you can do with your T100. Obviously there's a lot more to it that you could definitely get into, but that's going to be the basics, as I said. I would like to mention that I am not sponsored or endorsed by any brands or manufacturers. I just wanted to try to pass along some info to people who might want to do a little bit more with their T100 and tell you some of the things that I've learned since I've owned one myself. So thanks for tuning in with me, guys. I'm going to start doing a weekly video, so sorry about this one being late, but the next one should be hopefully on time. I intend to have it up at, again, once a week on a schedule. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks, guys.